Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. It's taken me a while to emotionally prepare myself to do another Question the Narrative video because the last one that I did, which was about the question of the flat earth, I got some responses that I expected, but that I also found to be rather surprising. I have spent so much time on my channel talking about how important it is to ask questions and to not be afraid to just wonder about things that are considered taboo. And people have generally, agreed with me about this. But when it came to this topic, I got scolded a few times. I lost a bunch of subscribers. I lost some Patreon patrons. And again, in a way, I knew that this was going to happen, but you just have to ask yourself, why do people get so upset about questioning this topic? And that's actually why I started my other video talking about cognitive dissonance, because I was hoping that it would help some of you to understand that we are conditioned to believe things from a very young age. And a lot of times when people tell you to question them when you're older, sometimes it can be hard to handle that. And unfortunately, I saw that a lot. But on the plus side, I also got a lot of really great questions. I got a lot of comments from people who might not necessarily agree with it, but they were very supportive and said, by all means, we might not believe this, but you should always ask questions. And so what I decided to do today was I was just going to address some of the questions that I did get from those people, because they are some of the very same questions that I had when I started researching this topic. And what I always want to say to you is that I am not telling you what to believe. I do not know 100% that this is fact. What I do know, however, is that there is a lot of good evidence to support it. And it's not an issue to me if you agree with me or not. Again, this is an exercise in questioning things. We have got to stop being afraid to question the official narrative. And this is a huge one. So one of the questions that I had was about Isaiah 40:22, because what it says is he sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. So some people said, do you see that? So the Bible tells us that the earth is round. It tells us that the earth is a sphere. Well, it tells us that the earth is round because the circle is round. And this is actually one of the questions that I had too. This was an argument I used to use years ago. I would say, no, right in Isaiah, it says he sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. But I never stopped to think that, in fact, a circle is a two-dimensional object. It is not a sphere. It is not a ball. Now, some people might say, well, Isaiah probably just didn't have the language to use, to describe what a ball looks like. But in fact, he did. If you go to Isaiah 22:18, he says, he will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country. So, and you can check different versions of the Bible and it will still be ball. So let's just go to, so this is the King James Version here. We'll go to the, let's see, NIV. So New International Version, it's still a ball. If you go to, let's see, I'm just trying to think of some others that I know of. The English Standard Version, it's still a ball. And if you would check Isaiah 40:22, it would still be circle, depending on what Bible version that you used. And so it actually shows it right here. So New Living Translation is circle, English Standard Version is circle. So it's really important that we understand that there is a difference between a circle and a ball, and Isaiah knew this. So right here we have a ball. It is a sphere. And right here we see a circle. A circle is a two-dimensional object, and nowhere on here do you see this circle being shown as a sphere, and nowhere in the balls do you see it being referred to, or do you see it just showing a circle. It's always a three-dimensional object. So it's really important that we do understand that there is a difference. So the topic of today's video is the edge of the world. So you might be wondering, well, why am I getting into this particular verse with, ball and circle? It's actually really important because I also got some questions about where is the edge, or what about the edge of the earth, or what stops the water from falling off? And we usually get some kind of image in our mind like this when we're thinking of the flat earth concept. But in actuality, what we need to, what the flat earth theory surmises is that the earth is more like this. The Antarctic wall, yes, wall, not a continent on the bottom of a ball, but that Antarctica is an actual ring of ice around the earth that contains the water. And that is why the water is not like flowing endlessly over the edge. And I have to say that this azimuthal equidistant map, it is used in a lot of scientific areas. So this isn't something that like a flat earther came up with. This is something that you can look at right up on Wikipedia, and it is used. So you might be thinking, okay, an ice wall, come on, give me a break. Well, all you have to do is type in ice wall. These are all images of the Antarctic ice wall. So a lot of people liken it to the Game of Thrones ice wall. I've never watched that show, but if you look at these pictures, these are all of the Antarctic ice wall. So I think that that is really interesting, and it really gives you a good image of what this world might actually look like if the flat earth theory is indeed correct. And I actually found this to be very interesting because Job 38:14 it's speaking of the earth here, and it says, "It is turned as clay to the seal, and they stand as a garment." So clay to the seal, well, what is that? Obviously, it's not talking about this kind of seal. It is talking about this kind of seal. This kind of seal that a lot of times you would maybe seal a letter with it. Sometimes they use like wax seals. Right here's a good one. The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. So if you look at it this way, this right here would be the Antarctic ice wall. This would be the water, and the upper, well, the ones that are standing up, those would be the continents. So I think that it's really interesting to look at these things when it comes to what the earth might actually look like. So I know that the next thing that people are going to say, and these are all things that I have anticipated, are going to be, well, people have crossed Antarctica. There have been explorers that have crossed Antarctica. And you're right. There have been explorers that have crossed Antarctica. Let me see here. So whenever I pictured, like when people would say that someone crossed Antarctica, I would just picture them going across this whole continent of Antarctica. And in reality, the explorers who have crossed Antarctica have actually crossed this narrow portion right here. And I'll show you, I have it right here. So they usually start down here. They also call this Ross Island, but this is where they start, and they will go across, and they go up to Berkner Island right here. Oh, I already had it zoomed in. Okay, so they will go up to Berkner Island. So again, I'll show you. They cross right here. They do not cross this way. So if you are actually looking at the azimuthal, I can't talk, map, I want you to keep in mind that they could possibly be traveling this way and think that they are going this way. Again, I don't know for sure. And I also have to say that just because this map here only goes out like this far, it doesn't mean that that's the length, like that's how far in it actually goes. It could go on for like really long amount of time. But the point is that I think a lot of people are under the impression that explorers are like crossing this whole vast continent when in fact they're only I say only, even though they say it's over 900 miles, so I don't want to diminish it at all, but it's just that it gives a different impression if you know that they're crossing from here to here, and it makes it much more feasible that, hey, they could possibly just be traveling something more along this way and just think that they are crossing, like going that way. Anyway, and as I was researching this, I found a really interesting article right here, and it won't load for me. Now, this article is on explorersweb.com. So this isn't something that, that flat earthers came up with, or they're trying to discredit, like the explorers that have crossed Antarctica, that nothing like that. But as I was reading through it, because I was actually trying to find the actual like starting and finishing point for most of the explorers, and as I was reading it, what I have discovered through this article is that a lot of the people who say that they have crossed Antarctica really have not. Sometimes they say that they've done it unaided, and that is not the case. A lot of times you find out later that they didn't tell people, but they were actually using roads that were already built to cross Antarctica. Sometimes they were having helicopters or whatever, maybe drop them off like far in, like maybe say right here instead of on the edge. So it's just really interesting that there's actually a lot of dishonesty that goes on when it comes to these explorers. And we have an actual explorer website talking about this. So that just gives you something else to think about. So the whole idea of Antarctica in general is really, really interesting. And I'm not going to have time to get into it today just because I only have a few minutes left on here. But I know that a lot of people are going to talk to me about, they're going to ask questions about what about the 24-hour sun in the summertime in Antarctica. There are cameras posted there, and they will show you like a feed of the 24-hour sun in the summertime. And so again, that was a question that I had until I actually saw videos that were showing that that camera showing that feed is actually edited. You will see that it does not show a full 24 hours. It like goes on a loop. You will see the same cloud formations. Sometimes you will see all of a sudden the shadows will jump from one place to another. And I'm going to try to find that video. YouTube has everything buried so deeply. It's so hard to find this stuff now. If I do, though, I'm going to link it in the description box. But it shows you that just like with the NASA live feed that tells you that they're giving you a live stream from the ISS, which in fact turns out that they're not actually showing you a 24-hour live stream, the same thing, the same deception is going on down in Antarctica. They are not giving you a 24-hour live stream. They are editing it, and you can see it just by the shadows jumping. You can see it by the same cloud formations coming in. And it's just, this is what we're living in, a time where it is so easy for people to make things up, and they can make things look so believable. And that's why it's important that as with this topic, don't be afraid to question these things. If you come to the conclusion that, hey, they are telling the truth, and this is all, the earth is a sphere, and that there's actually a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, fine, but at least you have the satisfaction of knowing that you're not believing it just because someone told you to, but you're believing it because you actually looked into it yourself. You actually did the research. And I have to say it again, it's hard to do the research nowadays because things are buried so deeply. Search engines are hiding things. You have to go through hundreds and hundreds of videos on YouTube in order to, my phone's ringing and it made my train of thought go off. Anyway, and, it just, hold on one second. And the same thing goes with YouTube. You have to go through hundreds and hundreds of videos in order to find the one that is actually giving the information that you want. Because the ones that are being put to the top of the searches are the narratives that they want you to believe. So it's just getting to the point where information is true information, unbiased. I should say unbiased. Unbiased information is very hard to come by in this day and age. But I'm going to hopefully in the future talk some more about Antarctica, because there's a lot more interesting stuff that we need to talk about when it comes to this. But for now, that's all that I have. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disables my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.